Do you have personnel costs that need to be spread across multiple budget areas? Martus's personnel budgeting allocations feature allows you to do this easily. Within a scenario, you'll assign employees and positions to their home dimensions, then define allocations to spread those costs to different dimensions, such as departments, projects, or grants. This tutorial will show you how an allocation can be set up and used. We've created a few allocations to serve as examples. We're going to start with an overview to describe how allocations work. As you already know, personnel costs are determined at the position level. Each position has an assigned employee and all of the relevant pay items for that employee. Each position is also associated with a specific budget worksheet, to which the costs for that position are normally budgeted. We call that the employee's home department. Your dimensions may be different. In other words, you may not use departments specifically. We're going to use that term in this tutorial to represent the budget area that would include all of the employees' compensation costs if they were not allocated. Allocations are defined separately from your personnel budgeting scenarios. You define an allocation and then create allocation segments within it. Each allocation segment defines how compensation costs should be distributed. It is typical to set up allocations for individual employees, but allocations can also be defined more broadly. For example, for an entire department, or based on square footage occupied, or more narrowly, for specific type of compensation. Allocations can also be limited to some months of the year, or applied to an entire fiscal year. You can review allocations on the Summary tab within Personnel Budgeting. You have the option to apply an allocation in order to review costs without the allocation applied, and then with the allocation applied. You can even view allocation details so that you can see original costs, with subtractions from the original budget area due to the allocation, and the addition to new budget areas on account of the allocation. Be sure to apply the allocation before posting the personnel budgeting scenario to the Martus budget. We're going to start by selecting allocations from the personnel budgeting menu. You'll see that we have one existing allocation. Within this allocation, we've already got two existing allocation segments, one for John Smith, one for Becky Brown. Let's look at the allocation segment for Becky Brown. First, you'll notice the name. Here we use the initials for the employee. You'll see the date range for this allocation. In this case, it runs from July through June, and it's based on 100% of this employee's compensation. When we set up the allocation, we defined the source for it. We selected only the employee Becky Brown. We could have chosen to specify all employees with a given position type. We could have selected on the basis of pay type, or we could have specified by dimension. For the source lines, you have the option to review the compensation in the home department. By picking the scenario and showing matches, you can see that her home department is Fund 10, Department 76, and Project General Admin. Scrolling down the screen, we see how we have set up the allocation targets. 20% of her compensation is going to be moved to the project called Acquisition. Another 20% of her compensation is being moved to SMH Support and to the Goldsmith Foundation grant. Yet another 20% of her compensation is being assigned to the Adult Programming Project and the DCA department. So a grand total of 60% of her compensation is going to be moved from her home department to these specific budget worksheets, projects, and grants. Now we're going to review the impact of this allocation. We're using the summary screen within Personnel Budgeting. We're looking at scenario number 1, and we're focusing specifically on employee Becky Brown. Initially, what you see is all of her salary applied to her base department, the combination of Fund 10, Department 76, and the General Admin Project. None of this is assigned to any particular grant. Once we view it with the allocation, and we'll see the portion of her salary which is still applied to her base department. Then we see the portions of her compensation that have been allocated to different departments, projects, and grants. Notice that the total salary for this employee remains the same. You can see allocation details, which will show you the math behind this allocation. At the top, we see her original salary. Then we see what was removed on account of the allocation named BB. And then we see what was added back on the basis of that allocation.